Okay, so today I'm going to start by going over the calendar for the week, since this week is a little bit off of the regular schedule in some ways. So today we're starting by going over the artworks. Actually, pretty much all we're going to be doing. It'll take most of the class to do that. So, but one of the things I did want to do is remind you that you had classwork. The first classwork for this unit and for the third quarter was due on Friday. And I didn't get any from this class, so I really want to remind you guys that you need to be doing that and handing that in today so that you don't fall behind. Some people were really going to be working on staying up to date and current and not falling behind this quarter. So actually, if I go ahead two slides, oops, back. You had two choices for classwork due Friday. The practice mandala on a simple grid, which you could do on paper or on your iPad. And then the other option was a 6-slide presentation and critique on the history/meaning of mandalas. So that was due Friday, which means since I didn't get any, you need to be finishing that up today. Okay? Yeah. There's no what? If you go to Schoology, let's take a look at that. So now that the submissions are enabled, you guys can submit those, which I'm sure you have worked on, because Mary Carol's got hers right here showing me. You got yours too? At his house. You can submit it when you get home now that I've fixed that problem. Awesome. Probably Zachary's got his too. Hopefully, let's see, I forgot who else is in the room. Kaden, Emma might have hers. I'm going to believe the best in everybody right now. Okay, so submissions today on your classwork. All right, now I want to go through and show you the artwork choices for this week, okay? So I'm going to start with the original hand-drawn mandala. They're all mandalas. There are some things in common as far as these artwork choices go, but they are all quite different, okay? Back to the schedule, that's right, for a second. On the schedule, you can see today I'm going to be introducing those. Tomorrow, I'm going to be spending most of the class period doing a demo on how to use Fresco and Photoshop to create your drawn mandala, original mandala. Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about origami and some things with that, which is one of your options. Thursday will be like a free for all demo day. So whatever people need to see, then I will show. Okay. So Friday, no school. Monday, no school because it's a long weekend. Tuesday, when you get back, that's when the artwork is due and we'll start our new week. So you have a nice solid chunk of time to work on it. Introducing it today, it's due a week from tomorrow. Okay, so that's a lot of time. All right, let's take a look at what we've got for options. I'm hoping people will like these. So the first one, actually, let me just shut these because then I get right to the beginning every time. All right, original hand-drawn mandala. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure that you look at the entire slideshow because I've got a lot of directions and things embedded in here. And then the reflection questions are at the end. First one is just an original mandala that you draw by hand and you create. I've got just a little bit here of information, including a site that you could go to that has meaning and some things about the symbology within mandalas if you're interested. And then each of the slideshows has a slide like this. The slide has 3 boxes. It says you must, you can choose, and suggested. Okay, so let's start with the you must. You must create an original mandala. That means not taken and lifted from the internet, not copied, not your classwork, an original mandala, and it must maintain radial symmetry. So it's got to revolve around the center point, be the same as it rotates around, be, you know, dividable, all those directions. I want to kind of specify that when it maintains radial symmetry, it can have some differences artistically. Like, for example, I have drawn mandalas before that were about the theme of the elements, the 4 elements. So like earth, wind, fire, water, okay? So I drew a mandala that had radial symmetry, but then in each of the quadrants, I had a different theme. So like I might have waves in one and blowing wind in the other and fire. So even though it had radial symmetry, it also had some details that related specifically to one of those elements. So had radial symmetry, but it also had some slight variation. That's okay. So if you have some artistic ideas that make it radial symmetry, but a little bit of a twist on it, that's okay. It needs to have detail. So your classwork, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 4 of your best artwork ever, you know? This one not only needs to be more developed with more detail and more time, but it also needs to have that really good craftsmanship. So here you are going to use rulers or things to trace, templates or compass or whatever. It's same thing in the app, and I'm going to show you those things tomorrow. But that doesn't mean that everything has to be a straight line. Like you can draw freeform shapes and you can draw wavy lines, but also it shouldn't be like, if we look at it, someone shouldn't think, I think that line was supposed to be a straight line, but it's all wiggly wobbly. Okay, so you need to make it good craftsmanship with control, and your choices in lines and shapes and such need to be deliberate. Okay, so that's the must stuff. You can choose to work on paper or to create on your iPad. Okay, that's up to you. You can do it on paper with pencil, Sharpie, but you can also create on your iPad in Photoshop or Fresco. It can be in black and white, and just that's, you know, simple, because that could get really detailed. It doesn't have to have color. I do myself personally, I like to draw just in black and white sometimes, and sometimes I do go ahead and add color, usually in the form of colored pencils. Strongly suggested, but not required. You're going to see examples where I used a name as a subject matter, and that's an idea that I found online where, like, literally in the wedge, you're drawing your name as the shapes, and it looks great. So that's a suggestion, a strong suggestion, especially if you don't have ideas or if you feel like you're just like randomly throwing shapes down. And then if you do use color, strongly suggesting that you use a color scheme for maximum impact, like, you know, complementary, warm, cool, analogous, something like that. Okay, so let's take a look. First, here we have the paper directions. So if you want to draw on paper, you would trace, not freehand, a circle. You cut it out, you fold it in half and half and half and half. Start by drawing your name in one of those triangular pie-shaped sections. And then you use this super old-fashioned technique of transferring the lead, rubbing it, makes it smush, keep going that way. In the end, sometimes this produces like, it transfers it, but it's pretty messy and kind of gross. So usually you're going to have to go over it. You might even have to trace it onto a new piece of paper, like from your sketchbook or something, but that's okay. Hold it up against the window and trace over it, and you've got yourself a nice little design. So this is what it looks like in real life. It is an effective method. It's kind of time consuming, but not too bad. I mean, all of this is time consuming, let's be honest. Okay, so that's what it basically looks like. If you wanted, when you were done, like I said, you could trace it onto a full-size paper so you're not working with this little wadded up pencil thing. You could then, like I said, trace it with marker. You could add color or not, it's up to you, okay? So that's a paper directions if you're interested in doing that on paper. This mandala can also be done in Fresco and Photoshop. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time demonstrating this to you tomorrow, some of the things that will make it more successful, but I'm going to give you a kind of a brief overlook right now. I started out, There's some advantages in to both programs and some disadvantages. So I basically, when I was creating mine, went back and forth. I do stuff in Fresco, save it, go to Photoshop, do stuff there, kind of back and forth, which is one of the things that I'll show you. But basically, in my opinion, Fresco has a better selection of brushes, including the vector brushes, which make the super crisp lines because they aren't pixel based. So they make really crisp, beautiful lines. But Photoshop has better tools for selections, and sometimes that's really important. And it has the ability to make gradients, which are those really smooth transitions to colors. So you could like go blue to light blue or blue to purple, and you might want that if you're going to add color. So with this one, oh, I forgot to say, so like you can see down in the bottom there, I had 3 or 4 different ideas that I was sketching out. And then I settled on which one I wanted. Once you choose a design, you use your layers, new layers. I drew it the best I could. You know, I had like a sketch layer. Now I'm drawing it the best I can with the vector brushes. And you duplicate it using your layers and the transform tool, and you can just copy and paste it and flip it. So it's like mirrored. I'm going to go into that, like I said, in detail. I also have a video to show you, but that's basically how you do work your way through, okay? It's pretty handy. It takes a little bit of time to like line things up and move things around, but as long as you're using separate, well, when you copy and paste, it'll make a layer. But as long as you're using separate layers, this really goes smoothly to be able to manipulate it. And you can see in both of those examples down the side how I have layers to manipulate. Okay, so there will be areas that don't quite match up when you do this because as hard as you try, it just happens. So it's not that hard to fix. You're just going to go layer by layer and kind of like push them into place, nudge them into place a little bit. And then also layer by layer, you can erase or use a mask to touch it up with a paintbrush, whatever you need to make it look as precise as you want it or can get it to be. So this example here has the letter M. You might be able to see it if you look real close towards the middle. And then my signature in that ellipse, that's my signature. And then actually that thing in the middle that looks kind of like a pineapple, that's my signature M. Flip-flop too, so it makes it look like a pineapple, which is kind of funny. This one here has my name again. You can see the big curlicue M towards the outside, and then it actually has all the letters of my name. So that's the thing that looks kind of like this shape. That's an E, but it's stacked up and up to each other, and then it's got the rest of the letters of my name going into the center. Doesn't even look like it. It's a pretty interesting way to create your design. Because I had the line template, the pie shape template on its own layer, I could turn it off eventually and it looks so much better that way. Okay, so please make sure that you have stuff on their own layer so you can manipulate them independently. If you're going to add color, which I was going to, but I didn't, but probably I'll add it tomorrow to show you. You can do it a couple different ways. You can add it on top and change layer modes. You can add it underneath and change layer modes, or use gradients and buckets and paintbrushes and all kinds of stuff. Especially in Fresco, you could use like those live watercolor brushes. You could do, oh, so many things. Okay. So that's just the quick, I'm going past all this stuff because you guys don't get to use Procreate unless you have it on your own. It's a $10 app and we couldn't get it for everybody. So you guys don't get it, sorry, just digital art. I apologize, it wasn't my fault. Okay, anybody have any questions about the first option so far? Like I said, I'm going to go into a lot of the technical processes tomorrow during the demo. Okay, so this one is pretty different. This is a radial paper relief sculpture, a mandala made out of paper origami. A relief sculpture is like, if you think, a lot of people think of sculpture and they think of like going into a museum and seeing a sculpture of a Greek goddess and you can walk all around it and see it from every angle. A relief sculpture is usually on a two-dimensional surface or a flat surface, like a relief sculpture could also be on the side of a building or something like that. So usually you can't walk all the way around it in 3 dimensions. So that's the category this is in, low relief sculpture. So creating a radial design, just like the other mandala, using 3-inch paper squares. So 3-inch just is the right like kind of size for these little guys. Technically, you could use different sizes, like that's just making it consistent. And there are 3 folds to that we're working with, but you could, if you knew more, you could use them. I can provide you with paper and glue sticks if you come by my room anytime this week. Or you could send a friend by if you're at home and haven't gotten in here or won't be getting in here. You could do that, or you could use your own as well. So here, let's look at these 3 boxes. You must create an original mandala that maintains radial symmetry. In this case, the craftsmanship refers to the folding and the gluing. So you need to make sure that when you're folding it neatly with precise folds, good creases, all that stuff. When you're gluing it, because there's a stage where you glue the pieces, the elements to the paper, that you're not getting glue all over the place, that you're not smearing it all over. It doesn't look like, you know, a second grader did it. And then you're using a combination of those 3 folds. Okay, so, but look under the you can choose. You can use any combination of the folds. So if you really like the kite fold and you want to do the whole thing out of that, you go right ahead. Okay, so whatever combination you want is up to you. You can use my paper or yours. So best for this is origami paper followed by copier paper because it needs to be thin. I don't know how many of you have ever done origami before or paper airplanes origami. It is not very easy to fold paper that is thick. So even construction paper would be too thick. Sketchbook paper, too thick. So you really need like printer or copier paper or origami paper, of which I have lots and it's pre-cut. So if you can't get here and you don't have any of that paper, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to do this one. But if you can get in here, you can have what you'd like of my paper. You could also choose to add other things to your artwork. Like I finished 2 of them, and with one of them in particular, I kept thinking about how it would be really fun to use like gel pens and draw in the background or something like that. Maybe you think of a nice thing you'd like to do, like glue sequins or something, I don't know. So if there's something else you think of to add to the artwork, you could do that. Strongly suggested, but not required. Use a color scheme for maximum impact, okay? Warm, cool, complementary, analogous, monochromatic even, okay? Measure some very light guidelines before you start. So in half, you know, diagonal quarters, because you can't just slap them down and expect it to line up. So the first part of this is reminding you how radial symmetry works so that you can start putting things down. Here are the folds, and first showing you how they're going to fit in there. This is stuff you can refer to later. It's right here in the presentation. Okay, then I want you to see these are the 3 folds. So I've provided a picture version, and then there's a video link at the bottom of a person folding these folds, bird's eye view. So you can see the hands from like the same point of view you would have. That's really helpful. So between the picture and the video, you can go through step by step and make these folds. They're not complicated. That doesn't mean it won't trip you up. I had to watch the, I had to do the samurai fold probably 6 or 7 times before I could do it without looking every time, just because I kept forgetting which part you did, how it started. Just because I have to do things a couple times usually before I just remember them, that's all. And maybe you're like that too. So it's okay. That stuff's there for you. Here's a nice little sheet so that if you keep, once you get the hang of it, you could keep this open just to remember, you know. This is what your paper would be divided like. All right, I might put out some white paper too for you if you want that instead. Here's a video showing some of the folding and then some of the construction from, like, it looks like a homeschool type family. There's a lot of that now. Okay, here is my example. So first I started just folding a bunch of the ones that I brought home to work on, but not all of them because I wanted some flexibility. Like I thought, I kind of had a vague idea like, oh, these would be good as kite shapes, but then I didn't fold all of them because I wanted to be able to change my mind if I wanted. Then I laid them out on my, I sorted them and I started laying them out in my black paper after I measured lines as well. The problem with that is that they were really like energetic and bouncy. They just were like flying and flopping all over the place. So I did lay them out, but then I was like, yeah, this is kind of annoying. So you might get to a point where laying them out does only so much good, and then you have to start gluing down the stuff that you like. Okay. So I also tried things like I reversed the folds in that, like the kite ones when you first make them are flat, or they even fold up the other way. So then I puffed them out so that I could stick stuff inside them. And then I started gluing them down. Oh, you can see my kitty in that one. So I started sticking them down. I started playing with like, oh, what if I shove these inside? Like that makes it pretty exciting. And then I shoved the samurai ones, which are the most three-dimensional, inside. Like I threaded them inside. That was not anything I had planned. It just sort of happened. And then I was like, that looks awesome. So it became much more three-dimensional than I had originally anticipated. And a couple of the ideas that I had to start, I didn't end up using because they just didn't look the way I thought they would. So, you know, that was the main takeaway to me, is that I had ideas based on what I thought it would go, how it would go or look like. And then when I started putting it together, some of the ideas had to change and shift, but that's okay. All right. So I glued down everything. And then I felt like I wanted to draw on it, but I haven't gotten there yet. So maybe I will. Oops. Here are some student examples from online, because this is a popular project right now. One of the things that I like about this one is how you could use negative space between the different pieces as shapes. Remember I talked about negative space just a little bit last week? So like those black triangles are not paper folded, they're just the background paper, but they look like shapes because of their function as negative space. So if you choose this one and you start arranging, think of how you don't have to have, like, I kind of liked how mine was like solidly put together, but you don't have to do that. There we go. You can leave space between your subjects to act as a shape also. And then there's the slide reflections. Any questions on origami choice? Okay. Now, last choice is found object, mandala, and photography. So with this one, you're creating and composing and photographing a mandala from natural subjects, or, well, yeah, we'll stick with that. Be thoughtful with all of your choices. Okay, this one might seem kind of random-ish, but it's definitely not. You should choose subjects that have personal meaning or are from nature. Okay, again, maintaining radial symmetry. So this one's a little different. I want you to think of, I mean, it's similar to Adam Hillman, who we looked at a few weeks ago with his stuff that was like very rainbowy and carefully arranged. It's a little similar to that, but I want you to think more of like the monks, the Tibetan monks who were doing the sand mandalas and pouring the sand art and creating these masterpieces that had symbolism and color and shapes, but then were temporary. So when they finished, there was this period of viewing and then it was just brushed and swept away. Okay, so here you can create an original mandala, maintaining the radial symmetry, and your subjects are either from nature, but I'm aware that like this morning it was -3 out. So maybe they're from nature, maybe they're something that has personal meaning. like jewelry or little toys from your childhood, or um, I I don't know, flower petals, but from flowers that you have inside. That's on you. Okay. Overall, you need to have good craftsmanship. So whatever you're using it neatly and with control. And lastly, whatever you photograph, like your subjects and you photograph, needs to be photographed with, clearly with good light. So don't wait and do this at 8 o'clock at night and then take a crummy photograph with a flash from an angle and get it blurry. Okay, that's not going to be okay. You can choose indoor or outdoor setting. Okay, so best light is natural light. If you get outside and do this, like the ones I'm going to show you, it'll come out probably awesome, but I'm not going to force anybody outside. Man-made or natural subjects. Strongly suggested, but not required. Use a color scheme for maximum impact. And for this one, I'm going to suggest strongly that you get some help, like an assistant, little brother, girlfriend, boyfriend, parent, that kind of thing. Get some help, someone to help you arrange subjects, because there probably will be quite a few, or someone to help you photograph while you are, or someone tall that can help work the camera, something like that. Okay, so this man, I believe, if I remember, was from England, but I'm not positive now because it was a while ago, I forgot. But look at the careful, some of these are not quite radial designs, but they're really close. I wanted you to see them anyway. Okay, so looking at, if you go outside, things that you can find around you, this kind of art usually doesn't disturb or ruin or harm the environment, So usually this type of art is very conscientious of the environment. And the things that they're collecting and arranging sort of sit in and merge with the environment, and they have personal meaning of that sort. So if you are creating a mandala or a radial design from natural subjects, think about what kinds of things you are using. If you're using objects that have personal meaning, again, think about what you're using, how you arrange them, where you arrange them. Shape is our thing this week. Look at the shapes that this man has chosen as his subject matter from one to another and how they relate to each other. Pretty awesome. Okay, so when you go to do this, this one just has some ideas, toys or things from the kitchen, leaves. So when you're working, I do want you to either use things from nature or things that you have some kind of personal meaning from. And I don't want to just see like 5 spoons in a circle. Okay, this needs to be intentional, deliberate, uh, and pretty detailed. Okay, pretty detailed. You need to plan ahead for the background so that it's either a neutral space or somehow adds to your mandala. You need to plan for good lighting. So this would be a good thing to start in the morning or early afternoon on one of your days off this weekend, or the long weekend. I would, unless lighting is somehow a super exciting part of it, like you're adding special lighting, I wouldn't start this at night and rely on like your flash or just a lamp. You need to make sure you're getting permission if there's something special involved, like, what if you're using something fancy, like fancy jewelry, fancy action figures that are, part of a limited collection, or fancy china, I don't know, fancy anything. Or special, might not even be fancy, but it's special for whatever reason. Make sure you're getting permissions. Or if you're just using the entire bag of grapes from the fridge, moms don't like it when you waste food. So make sure you're getting permission for anything that you're using, and also to plan for the disposal. Just plan ahead and get permissions for all of that stuff. Okay, so we've gone through all the artworks. What questions do you guys have about that stuff?